Hello, my name's Anastasia, welcome back to my channel, and I'm here to do the Get to Know the Fantasy Reader tag. This tag was originally created by Brie Hill and it was Get to Know the Romance Reader, but now the fantasy version of it was created by the Book Pusher. And I'm gonna link both the videos and blogs because Brie Hill has a blog and not a channel, I believe. So I'm gonna link both those things down below for you to check out. But basically this tag is all about getting to know the fantasy reader, like my preferences, how I view fantasy and blah blah blah. It's consisted of 10 questions, so let's get right to it. First question is, what is your fantasy origin story? Which basically means which book got you into fantasy. This is a really tough question. This is not because I can't think of a book, but because fantasy is such a broad genre. In the beginning, like the first books I read that were into the fantasy overall genre were paranormal books, so they were urban fantasy and they were Vampire Diaries, because I was watching the TV show during that time and I just really wanted to read the books. And then I was reading Percy Jackson, which is also a type of urban fantasy. But the book that actually made me want to read more fantasy and to kind of explore the genre and find all the different types of books in it was The Moral Instruments by Cassandra Clare, which is urban fantasy and it involves all types of creatures. So it has vampires, werewolves, fays, demon hunters, demons, warlocks. It literally has everything. By reading a book that had such a mixture of creatures inside, I kind of became more curious about the genre and I started reading way more fantasy and way more YA. Question 2 is, if you could be the heroine in a fantasy novel, who would you want to be the author and what would be the one trope you'd like to be in the novel? Okay, so for that, oh god, I have so many favorite authors, but I don't know if I would want them to kind of write my book. Probably it would be Leigh Bardugo or Brandon Sanderson, or if I could have a mixture of both, because authors collaborate. Maybe I could get a book by Leigh Bardugo and Brandon Sanderson, who knows, but that would be them, because I love Jay Kristoff, but I don't think I would make it through the book. If he wrote my book, I think I would be dead by the end of it. No spoilers, he just makes really dark books, and also his characters go through hell, and yeah, that would be a little bit too intense for me. I would love Cassandra Clare, but again, it's way more character driven and not plot driven, and I would like that intricate dark plot that I think Leigh Bardugo and Brandon Sanderson could give me. And the one trope that I would like to have is, I want that evil overlord dude, the ultimate villain that is ruling over the land, and the land is currently in a really dark place. So yeah, I like that. I wouldn't even want to be like the main character. I could be in a band of characters, kind of like Mistborn or Six of Crows, where you have this gang of characters and they plan something together and things get really dark and there is magic, and oh yes, definitely Brandon Sanderson or Leigh Bardugo, and definitely the villain dude. Question 3 is, what is a fantasy book that if you've read this year and you want more people to read? That for me is a book that I think a lot of people already have read because I came in way too late in the fandom, but it is The Girl and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This book is beautiful. There's no other way to describe it other than beautiful. You're swept away in the snowy landscape of Russia, following a girl that can see house spirits, and I think the novel you have religion fighting with old legends, and you also have the bigger villain that is the Winter Lord or something, and his brother. Basically, if you like books that read like fairy tales that have beautiful writing and magical creatures and Russian folklore, this is a wonderful book to pick up. I've never read anything about Russian folklore and I kind of want to know more now. Question 4 is, what is your favorite subgenre and what subgenre have you not read much from? So my favorite subgenre has changed over the years. As I said, I started with paranormal novels, so it was more urban fantasy. I used to read books that were set in contemporary times, and then there was this magic world where characters were swept away. And I kind of loved that because it was my own type of escape. So knowing that the characters were in the same world as I, and then they were swept away to this other world and they had this wonderful adventure, made me kind of believe that I could too. I guess it gave me a more plausible escape. However, now growing as a character, God, I wish. Growing as a person and growing as a reader, I love high fantasy so much. I love worlds that have their own magic system and that have intricate politics behind them, and they have huge villains and bands of characters and multiple POVs. I'm new to this subgenre. I've read some amazing books, but I have not read all of the popular books, and there's so many more books that I need to read, and that's kind of the magic of it as well, that I'm discovering it. I think the subgenres that I haven't read a lot from are, surprisingly enough, vampire fiction. I haven't read a lot of it. I think I've read The Vampire Diaries, True Blood, and not much from that. Usually vampires for me are, you know, one of the creatures that are in the world of, you know, the book that I'm reading, but not the main characters. Question 5 is, who is one of your favorite fantasy authors? Only one? Well, I'm currently reading Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm loving it, and I'm obsessed with Six of Crows, so I guess I could say Leigh Bardugo, but same goes for Jay Kristoff, Cassandra Clare, Rick Riordan, Brandon Sanderson, Patrick Rothfuss, and so many others, but since you only said one, I'll give you 5. Question 6 is, how do you typically find fantasy recommendations? And for me, it's either YouTube, because I've been watching BookTube for so many years now that I literally evolved as a reader because of BookTube. Most of the books that I found because of BookTubers and recommendations and tags and all of that. But I found a lot of books from book blogs because I have a book blog which has been inactive for quite a while now, and also Goodreads. I scroll through Instagram and I never like note down the titles of the books. Like, I look at the pictures and they're beautiful and I like them and I comment on them, but I never write down the titles. So I always forget about the books that I find on Instagram. Question 7 is, what is an upcoming fantasy read that you're excited about? I am so behind on releases, like you have no idea. I'm still reading books from 2017 and 2016 and fantasy books that are coming out now in a series. I haven't even read the first book. Yeah, my TBR list is so big. So big, it's like the height of a building. However, V. Swab is supposed to be coming out with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue sometime during 2020. I think it's a story that spans through hundreds of years, and it's about a girl's relationship with death, I think. And it's very intricate, it's an adult fantasy novel. She has the ability to write incredibly complex and morally ambiguous characters, and I'm all for that, and apparently she's gonna be one of those characters, so I'm very excited about that. Question 8 is, what is one misconception about fantasy you would like to put to rest? The one thing that I would definitely like for people to stop saying is how fantasy and fantasy novels are childish. I don't know why, because I think people believe that fantasy is only Harry Potter or only Percy Jackson or only, I don't know, Roald Dahl. A lot of fantasy books have a message and have helped a lot of, teenagers and a lot of people in different ages, but those books like Brandon Sanderson books, Patrick Rothfuss books, and those epic fantasy books have politics behind them or might be based on actual historical events. Those kind of stories that are based on historical events, or they're based on a specific timeline in history, they usually do refer to actual events and they make the reader want to go and research them more. Or you get to know a bit more about the culture. Like, there's so many fantasy novels based on Russia, on Prague, on France, on Spain, on so many places, and you get to learn a little bit more about that place. And not just, the big books that, people are scared to read, but even like children's books, fantasy novels, that they have amazing messages behind them, or YA books. And I'm so annoyed when people say that YA is not for adults, because I know a lot of booktubers who are 30 have been shamed for reading YA books. But fantasy is timeless. Like, you can read about a 16-year-old main character in a book that has an amazing message about, let's say, grief. Why not? Like, the message is amazing, the story is beautifully written. What does it matter if the character is 60, 35, or 14? Question 9 is, if someone had never read a fantasy book, what are the 3 books you would recommend them to read? It's as if asking me to give a recommendation in a cafe for like a hot drink, but not telling me you're lactose intolerant. In order for me or for anyone to recommend books, it would be really useful to know the likes and the dislikes of a person, so you can direct them into a specific book. But not just that, fantasy, as I said, is a huge genre with so many subgenres, so I wouldn't know where to begin. I mean, a fantasy author that's done both YA and adult fantasy is Naomi Novik, and I would recommend her because of her beautiful writing. Her Uprooted series, which is an anthology actually, is beautifully written. It reads like a fairy tale, so it reads fast, but it is a bit slow-paced, which is contrary to what I said, but whatever. And she has, I think, another series which is purely YA, 5 books. I think it's about dragons and it's very, very popular. Cassandra Clare would be good if you like romance, and she kind of introduces you to all of the creatures usually involved in fantasy. It's really difficult to recommend 3 books because every single person has different taste. So, for example, I love The Name of the Wind. It's one of my all-time favorite books, but I know people that have read it and could not finish it because it was so slow-paced. Last question is, who is the most recent fantasy booktuber that you've come across and you like to shout out? The booktuber I've been watching a lot lately, and the one that I've recently come across, is Boston Reads Books. She's doing amazing videos and amazing lists, and I love the way she describes everything, and I love her videos and the aesthetic of them, so she's incredible. My top 2 old booktubers that are doing purely fantasy content is Piera Ford, who did an amazing video series on Nevernight, and Daniel Green, who is like the king of fantasy in booktube apparently, and I didn't even know that until a week ago. But my all-time favorite fantasy booktuber is Thoughts on Toms. She is incredible. She's read so many fantasy books. I love her personality. She's incredible, and I love her recommendations, and I've actually learned about a lot of fantasy books from her. And that was it. That was the Get to Know the Fantasy Reader tag. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!